How is your health?
Well, that is quite the heavy question to just drop on us right out of the gate.
I know, right? But I really want you, the listener, to just sit with that for a heavy second. Because, well, welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Our mission today is to move completely past the superficial. I mean, we spend so much of our time obsessing over the physical body we see in the mirror, you know?
Oh, absolutely. The whole, am I fit enough? Do I look tired? Routine.
Exactly. We stare at the reflection, but we almost never look under the hood at the actual operating system that's running the entire show.
And that's a massive blind spot because when you only look at the mirror, you're missing the machinery entirely.
Right.
The core of who you are, your conscious awareness, you're the pilot of your life, but your subconscious mind, that is the autopilot.
The autopilot. It really sets up this weird dynamic where we think we're flying the plane, but mostly we're just like sitting in the cockpit drinking coffee.
While the autonomic nervous system does the actual navigating.
Yeah. Like that crazy story about the builder, the guy in the 90s who jumped off the scaffolding and landed on a 15-centimeter nail.
Oh, wow. Yes. The one where it pierced his steel-toed boot.
Right. And he was rushed to the ER in absolute sheer agony, just screaming, hyperventilating. They had to heavily sedate him just to cut the boot away.
And then they get the boot off and...
Yeah, and the nail had slipped perfectly between his toes. Not a single scratch. Completely uninjured.
Which perfectly illustrates the autopilot. To the subconscious mind, a perceived psychological threat is treated the exact same way as a physical one. Threat is threat.
His brain literally invented excruciating physical pain just to protect him.
Exactly. And if we want to really understand this autopilot, we have to look at its prime directive.
What is it, what?
Survival. Its absolute non-negotiable priority is survival. It's this highly specialized survival machine running programs, many of which you didn't even write, by the way, just to keep your physical avatar functional.
Okay, so just quietly working in the background all the time.
All the time. Think about the sheer intelligence of the biological currency it uses. If you get a small cut on your finger making dinner, you don't have to sit down and consciously concentrate on healing it, do you?
No. I usually just slap a bandage on it, forget about it, and my body just sort of takes care of it.
Right, because the subconscious mind takes over completely. It manages the immune response. It dilates the blood vessels to increase blood flow and literally rebuilds your cellular tissue while you're just sitting there watching TV. It has total control.
Okay, let's look at the extremes of that, though. Because if the subconscious is so good at quietly fixing a paper cut, what happens during a massive physical crisis?
Like what?
Like, say you see a bone break or you witness some severe trauma. Why do we faint?
Well, the underlying mechanism there is a rapid, calculated physiological triage.
Triage.
Yeah. When you experience massive trauma, your conscious pilot is about to completely panic, right? Which floods the nervous system with this massive surge of stress hormones.
Cortisol, adrenaline, all that.
Exactly. Epinephrine, the whole cocktail.
Wait, I need to push back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Isn't fainting just a vasovagal response?
It is, yeah.
Like just a sudden drop in blood pressure and heart rate? Are you saying the brain purposefully orchestrates that drop as a tactical reboot? Or is that just some, I don't know, biological glitch we're romanticizing?
What's fascinating here is that from an evolutionary biology standpoint, it is absolutely not a glitch.
Really?
Really, it's a highly conserved survival mechanism. The dorsal vagal complex gets activated to induce this freeze and collapse state.
But why? That seems so counterintuitive when you're in danger.
Because think about it. An enormous spike in blood pressure and a racing heart from conscious panic while you are severely bleeding, that would cause you to exsanguinate, to bleed out so much faster.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of that.
And a massive cortisol flood also restricts localized immune responses. So by forcing a sudden drop in blood pressure, your subconscious essentially unplugs the conscious panic.
So it's literally like shutting off the power at the mains to save the house from an electrical fire.
That is the perfect analogy, yes. It shuts you down to halt that dangerous flood of hormones.
You're getting the panicked pilot out of the way.
Exactly. It stops you from throwing the system out of equilibrium. That allows the autonomic nervous system to divert 100% of its resources to the single most important command, which is heal. It's a literal circuit breaker.
That is fascinating. So the brain uses this very specific biological currency, like nervous system regulation and blood flow,
Yeah.
to physically heal the body. But how does that translate to the structure of the mind? I mean, we all kind of know about neuroplasticity, right? The brain's ability to rewire itself.
Sure.
But I want to get into the friction here. Since the subconscious has total control over physical healing, how does it shape the mind?
Well, to understand the friction, we have to recognize that the brain isn't a hardwired computer. It's more like intelligent plastic.
Intelligent plastic, or like dynamic clay.
Yes, dynamic clay is great. So the hardware is your physical neurons and synapses,
Right.
and the software consists of the high-frequency electrical and chemical signals, basically your thoughts and emotions running through that hardware.
Okay. And there's that famous rule, right?
Yes, neurons that fire together wire together.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the brain is basically a road network. But how does a passing thought actually become a permanent physical structure in the brain?
It comes down to a process called myelination. When you learn a new skill or even just repeat a specific thought pattern, synaptogenesis occurs.
Meaning you build a new connection.
Exactly, you form a new connection. But at first, it's really weak. It's sort of like water flowing down a hill looking for a path.
A little trickle.
Right. But as you repeat the thought, the brain wraps that neural pathway in myelin sheathing. It's this fatty substance that acts like insulation on an electrical wire.
Oh,
The thicker the myelin, the faster and more effortlessly the signal travels.
okay. So if the neural pathway is a dirt road, the myelin sheeting is like the asphalt. We keep pouring over it until it becomes a superhighway.
Precisely. And at the same time, the brain does something called synaptic pruning. Your subconscious is incredibly energy efficient.
Like a ruthless gardener.
Very ruthless. It prunes away the connections you don't use. That's why you forget a language if you stop speaking it.
Mm-hmm.
The brain strips the myelin and deletes the road to save energy for the highways you actually use.
Okay, I see where you're going, but if the subconscious is so smart, why does it build highways that are terrible for us?
What do you mean?
Well, let's say I pair my job with intense anxiety every single day. Am I accidentally paving a multi-lane, high-speed, fully myelinated highway for stress?
Unfortunately, yes. You are completely funding the construction of a stress superhighway.
Yikes.
If you constantly run the software of anxiety through the hardware of your brain, the autonomic nervous system just adapts. It says, hey, we seem to be doing this anxiety thing a lot, so let's make it more biologically efficient.
Wow. So eventually, that high-speed highway becomes our default mode.
Exactly. You don't even have to try to be anxious anymore. You just pull into your office parking lot, and your brain automatically routes the electrical signals down the path of least resistance.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? I think this is huge. Getting stuck in a rut, whether it's chronic anxiety or feeling unmotivated, is not a character flaw.
No, not all.
You aren't broken. It's literally just your highly efficient brain doing its job too well. It poured asphalt wherever you kept driving.
And this reveals the really dark side of the mechanism, which is negative plasticity, because neuroplasticity is completely neutral.
Right. It doesn't have a moral compass.
Not at all. The subconscious autopilot doesn't care if a program is good or bad for your happiness. It only cares about efficiency.
So it's totally blind to the quality of our life.
Completely blind. It's just an algorithm. If you spend years running the software of I am not enough or constantly bracing for a threat because of past trauma, your brain physically builds a robust structure to make that exact thought effortless.
You literally get trapped in a fear loop.
Yes, it becomes your default mode network. And stepping outside of that mode feels physically uncomfortable because, well, there are literally no myelinated roads leading anywhere else.
But the mechanism swings both ways, doesn't it? Because if there's negative plasticity, there has to be positive plasticity, like a healing mode.
Absolutely. The tissue is always dynamic. Positive plasticity is your inherent ability to break up the asphalt on those old highways.
How so?
By consciously choosing new thoughts and processing old emotions, you force the brain to stop sending current down the old path. Without the current, synaptic pruning kicks in. The brain dismantles the fear highway and builds new roads.
Wait, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Because this highlights a huge disconnect for me.
Oh.
If the brain is just blindly building roads based on traffic and we've been driving down the wrong way on the fear highway for years, stuck in this negative mode, how does the autopilot ever get our attention to warn us?
That's a great question.
Right. If its prime directive is survival, doesn't it want us to fix the psychological decay?
It does, but here's the problem.
All right.
We expect the subconscious to communicate using logic or, words, but the subconscious doesn't speak English.
So what does it speak?
It speaks in physiological states. It speaks in high-frequency feelings.
High-frequency feelings like
Yeah.
this undeniable heavy dread in your stomach or a tightness in your chest.
Yes. And those aren't just metaphors. That tightness is your autonomic nervous system activating. Your emotional dashboard is constantly flashing a check engine light.
But what do? We completely ignore it.
We distract ourselves. We scroll on our phones. We work 80 hours a week. We bury it. But if you ignore that check engine light for years, the subconscious still has to fulfill its prime directive. It has to deal with threats. So it finds a way to get your attention that you absolutely fundamentally cannot ignore.
It deploys physical pain.
Exactly. When your emotions are ignored for too long, they manifest somatically. Physical pain is literally a forced intervention from the subconscious mind.
Like we saw with the builder and the nail. The somatosensory networks process emotional threat and physical damage using the exact same pathways.
Precisely. It all comes down to allostatic load.
Which is the wear and tear on the body from chronic stress.
Yes. When you suppress a heavy emotion, your brain perceives an unresolved threat. So it keeps your system engaged. You get this continuous low-grade drip of cortisol and inflammatory cytokines flooding your body.
So you're basically in a permanent state of fight-or-flight sympathetic overdrive.
Mm-hmm. And over the years, that systemic inflammation physically damages tissue. It dysregulates your immune system, it alters your gut microbiome, and it creates profound, unexplained somatic pain.
It is your subconscious literally screaming at you that your inner world is uninhabitable.
It really is.
And I want to pause here and just talk directly to you, the person listening to this right now.
Yeah.
We live in a society that demands a purely mechanical, medical reason for absolutely everything.
We do.
And yes, sometimes a broken bone is just a broken bone, but we have to ask the straight talk questions. Is your physical health right now being sabotaged by your inner world?
It's a tough question to face.
It is.
Yep.
Is that eating disorder you've been battling actually just a highly effective emotional buffer that your autopilot created to protect you?
To keep you from feeling completely out of control, yes. It is crucial to examine chronic conditions through this lens. Is your persistent fatigue or your unexplained muscle pain actually a physical manifestation of old, unprocessed trauma?
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's so much easier to just take a pill than to look inside, isn't it?
Oh, much easier.
We would rather swallow a chemical to numb the symptom than actually open the hood, look at the engine, and admit that we've been running the machine into the ground.
Because popping a pill requires zero self-reflection. It treats the secondary symptom, not the primary mechanism. Your subconscious might actively be generating that physical problem because it's the only way to force you to finally look at your health box.
The health box.
Yeah, that dusty, terrifying container of energy, memory, and emotion you've been stuffing away in the attic of your mind.
Wow. And we all have those packages.
Yeah.
Every single one of us.
We do.
We have these tightly sealed boxes we are terrified to open, deep insecurities, maybe childhood trauma or, intense societal pressures, mommy and daddy issues. We just stack them up in a cargo hold and hope the autopilot will somehow just fly around them.
But the autopilot can't fly around them forever. The allostatic load just becomes too heavy. The extra weight drags the whole physiological system down.
Well,
to truly stop the negative default mode, to halt that systemic inflammation, you have to be willing to open those packages. You have to learn the language of your own physiological state so you can finally talk back to the machine.
okay, so let's say someone is listening right now, and this is really hitting home.
Mm-hmm.
They hear the subconscious screaming. They are looking at the pain, the physical tension, and they're ready to stop judging themselves for it. How do we actually rewrite the code? How do we trigger this positive neuroplasticity and heal the machinery?
We apply the exact same SCAR logic to the mind that we apply to the body.
SCAR logic. I love it.
Yeah, we talked earlier about how the subconscious uses biological currency to knit your physical skin back together after a cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, neuroplasticity is just the healing mechanism for your mind.
Yeah.
If the body can knit skin back together, the brain can knit a completely new, heavily myelinated mindset together. But to trigger this recoding, you need 3 specific elements.
3 elements to pave the new highway. What's the first one?
First is awareness. I mean, you cannot rewrite a neural pathway if you don't know the program is running.
That makes sense.
You have to identify the old default mode, map out the current traffic flow. Why do you react with explosive anger when someone gives you feedback? Why do you physically shut down when you feel vulnerable? You have to shine a light on the existing roads to understand where the current is flowing.
Right. You can't reroute the water if you don't know where the riverbed actually is. Okay, what's the second element?
The second is intensity. And again, this comes back to hard biology. You can't just passively think, oh, I want to be happy.
Because it doesn't stick.
Exactly. A passive thought doesn't release the necessary neurotransmitters to trigger myelination. To speed up the physical wiring process in the brain, you need a high-frequency emotional state.
Wait, really? So why does an elevated emotion speed up neuroplasticity?
Because when you experience intense emotion, think of the raw passion of an Olympic athlete or profound, deep gratitude, your brain releases a cocktail of dopamine, acetylcholine, and norepinephrine.
The big ones.
Yeah, and these chemicals act like highlighters for your nervous system. They tell the brain, hey, this specific pathway is incredibly important to our survival. Save this, myelinate this immediately.
Why?
So you need to attach intense, elevated emotion to the new thoughts you want to wire into your brain.
So it's not just repeating a dry affirmation in the mirror that does literally nothing. It's about feeling the profound relief or the joy or the absolute certainty of the new state you are trying to build.
Exactly. The emotion is the neurochemical catalyst that makes the tissue moldable. And that brings us to the third and final element, repetition.
Neurons that fire together, wire together.
Precisely. You have to consistently run this new healing mode script. You have to drive the new road every single day.
And what happens to the old road?
If you do this, the old fear highway is deprived of electrical current. It gets subjected to synaptic pruning. The brain literally dismantles the asphalt, and your new trust highway gets paved, widened, and reinforced until it becomes your new automatic default mode.
That is incredibly empowering. I want to guide you, the listener, into that healing mode right now. To do this, you need quiet time. You need to step away from the noise of your life and just sit with yourself. Ask yourself honestly, why do I do the things I do? Go back in your mind to when that physical or emotional pain first started. What was happening in your physiological state? Did you change locations? Did a relationship end? Was there profound grief or a deep, isolating loneliness? You have to look at the data without sugarcoating it. No judgment, no fear, no regrets.
And that lack of judgment is biologically vital, because when you open those packages, if you flood your system with shame or fear, you are just pumping cortisol back into the system and firing the old stress highways again.
You're just reinforcing the bad roads.
Right. You have to look at your past traumas with the calm, objective eye of an architect examining a blueprint. You ask why, you look deeply into the feelings, and you begin the biological work of rewiring.
Because you are the architect of your brain.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate takeaway here. You are not a victim of your biology, you are the director of it.
Absolutely.
If you do not like the default mode you are currently living in, you have the physical biological equipment inside your skull right now to override it. There is no doubt about that. It just takes the work of awareness, the neurochemical intensity of your emotion, and the discipline of repetition. If your mind has the power to heal a physical wound while you sleep, or invent the pain of a nail through a boot just to protect you, it absolutely has the power to heal your life. It is time to take the wheel back from the autopilot.
Which leaves you with an important question to take with you today. If your physical pain is just an unread message from your subconscious, what is that persistent ache or stress in your own body trying to tell you right now? And are you finally ready to translate it?